Alright, fingers crossed this works. Hey, Platinum Mimi. Hello, my dear. Finger on the trigger, you win this time. Captain Ginger and Melrax. Looks like it's working. Is it working this time? I have a feeling you can hear me. When Captain Deltron says no audio, I can never tell if it's a wolf or someone crying wolf. Lovely to see you. And as always, it's a pleasure to see you too, lovely. What would you guys like to talk about? I'm always too loud. In the last scope, back like the old days when I had only a few followers, I used to lose my shit. Sometimes I just don't have the energy to lift the load of a public scope, my good ladies and friends and gentlemen. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like any other load. Sometimes if you have too much in the boot of your car, you have to take some out. You want to get down on yourself, but no, what you do is you go do some gym, go have some nice meals, spent 3 hours working on my thesis. By the way, Mel, here is my accent now. Il continue à descendre, à descendre. Car la lumière devenait de plus en plus. Yeah, alright. Yes, as beautiful as those cockatoos screaming, there you go. I actually don't read Twitter very much. I get a lot of stuff, but I don't really read it very rarely. It's a very awesome thing you can do. You just mute everybody. It does nothing but bring you down, and there's no purpose to it. If, for example, I don't know, we needed to evacuate the Earth, then yes, it would be important to be people who... Funny, I heard someone once say that life is enough of a tragedy, but on top of that, you always have to deal with malevolence. It was said better than that, but you are still being trolled. Oh yeah, this is what happens with obsession or fatal attraction. Are you ready for attraction that's fatal? There was this thing, it's quite fascinating. I remember hearing Javier the other day on Scope saying that Sean Carroll, who's a physicist, was saying that the quantum particles popping in and out of existence is BS. So I looked it up and I realized that Schrodinger's brain is what he was referring to popping in and out of existence. In other words, what's the chance that all of the quantum particles of the universe have constructed themselves in such a way that we think we've existed, but we all just came into existence spontaneously last Tuesday? That's nothing to do with what I was saying. I was talking about quantum particles that pop in and out like bubbles. Now, in terms of the crowd, when I was saying the crowd giving a Mexican wave, the thing about the crowd is that it doesn't matter who's in the crowd as long as they're participating in the wave. So you could have Captain Deltron in there, then take him out and put in Mel, and the wave will still go ahead. It doesn't actually matter from far away, because that's the only place that the wave exists. You can't see the wave when you're in the crowd. And it's the same deal with us as humans as anything. Helmet, sun, light, air. They're all made up of quantum particles that are just moving in certain ways. And you could swap one quantum particle, put another one in, and it would be the same thing. So you start to wonder, what are you? And it's more of a construct of information. It could be scale, but you could also say the wave is an illusion. Or you could say the wave is a transmission of information. Information that's, say, against the natural disorder of entropy, because that stuff doesn't exist. Complex information, pockets of complex information exists in a universe of increasing entropy, but that information is only in existence when the observer views it. It's not, there is no such thing as the wave unless you stand back and look at it. Otherwise, what is it? If you zoom in, it's just people raising their arms and putting them down. So it's just a quantum particle inhabiting a certain state. Crowd fan duality. I love that. That is a Captain Deltron coined term. The crowd fan duality. But you see, we are waves of these quantum particles that are just changing their states, and so the wave moves, and we think that we are things separate from the particles themselves, but we're not. That's the funny thing. So how does that make sense? Well, it requires consciousness, but then where does that come from? Who knows? I saw that little article today, Platinum Mimi, in the Wall Street Journal. The last thing I saw at the end was, they prefer their citizens, or they prefer their something, to live in poverty. And I just thought to myself, editorial, mistaken as fact. This happens all the time. This is what I mean by media is propaganda by definition. You see it all the time, yeah. Like if I say to you, Platinum Mimi, she keeps calling me because she's lonely, for example. And the funny thing is, people will believe that, even though that assumes a level of mind reading, which we don't possess. So we live in this, and I guarantee you someone else is going to be saying this soon or has said this. But I've been saying this for a while. We live in a world where we think we can read everyone else's minds, and that comes from the psychology of direction. I was talking to my brother now. I was an Obama fan. My brother is a Trump fan, right? So we were talking about how if Obama said we're going to build a wall, the one that was freaking out now would not be freaking out because they believe they can read his mind. Corbyn yesterday, the paper totally misquoted. Oh, of course. Well, see, if you assume, and this is the problem is not the newspaper. The problem is people believing the newspaper. Yeah, and they believe it. I don't understand that. That part blows my mind, how that happens all the time. It doesn't matter who says it. They could be the best people in the world. But if I went to Melrax and said, the sun is out today, I bet you my neighbor's sweating. What is that? All of a sudden, you're picturing some neighbor sweating. And all of a sudden, it becomes more real just by giving you the picture. And that's what happens to human brains. And we don't realize that that's happening. But, you know, you're saying you're refusing to defer your judgment to someone else giving you an opinion on your behalf. But that happens all the time. People will watch something and go, yep, that's my opinion. He just said my opinion. I'm like, no. It's your opinion now because he said it. And why do you listen to one person, not the other? I would say because temperamentally you agree with that one, or you're more comfortable listening to that one, is to enjoy the passing of time. I like that one. I've heard something similar to do with meditation. I think it was Yuval Harari, the Israeli historian, who wrote the book Homo Deus, talking about the future of humanity. And he was talking about if you're bored, being bored is the inability to focus on your own breath or something like that. He said even that is interesting. Yeah, but you said it in a much better way. So anyway, I'm reading this book. It's by Mark Twain, and it's in French. I'm up to paragraph 18, and it's got the English with it, and Spanish, but I'm not reading the Spanish. I don't know why. I've never been interested in Spanish. Desde un puente ferroviario. I've never been bored a day in your life. Wow. Well, that takes some skill. So what have we got here? It's a man being hung, or no, not hung, being hanged. Sorry. I never used to understand the difference in hanged and hung. I know now. Because in the Bible that I used to read as a kid, I remember at 14 and 15, I started to notice this all the time, because in the book of, I think it's in the book of Samuel, you get a lot of people that are hanged, and they always just say hanged. I'm like, why hanged and not hung? Anyway, now I know. It's a guy in the Confederacy who is tricked by a spy pretending to be of the Confederacy but was actually of the Union, who tricked him into crossing a bridge. Now, the bridge on the other side was taken by the Union, and so by him crossing the bridge, he got caught as a traitor to the United States and was was hanged. And it's quite interesting. It has flashbacks. He's standing there at the beginning with the noose around his neck, and then there's an experience as he falls through, and then the noose breaks and stuff like that, and how he gets away. But the description of what America was like, I think it's somewhere between the South and the Midwest, and the description of the wildlife and the animals and the trees and the politics, and it's just quite fascinating. Very violent past we've had as humanity. Puis is French for then. Peter Hitchens described a couple of weeks ago why Jeremy Corbyn is so popular, and he did a great job. You'd be surprised if you listen to him. He's actually quite. It depends on the topic. When he talks about Christianity, he loses his head, and you can just see he slips off logic. But he's actually mentioned that he's not speaking with logic when it comes to Christianity. And I thought, okay. But when he talks about Russia, when he talks about Trump, calling him a cunning oaf, I just thought that was genius. The way he put those two words together, a cunning oaf. The way that he insulted Brexit and the referendum, and he absolutely disagreed on how he made the most idiotic tweet the other week. Can't recall it. Oh yeah, my God! If I was going to judge people on the idiotic tweets, I would not listen to myself. He's a very interesting character because he was a staunch Marxist and Trotskyist his whole life, and then he converted to Christianity. But he's converted to the most Marxist. Twitter is toxic, absolutely toxic. I don't even bother now. I might tweet something, but I never, I'll look at you guys or Boss Briggs or something, and that's it. I tell you what happened today. I got triggered on Twitter, and I immediately just switched off. And I've learned to do this from years ago. What happened was that some guy was tweeting about a Syrian refugee in Lebanon who died because she was refused.
They got me staring at the world through my rear view. Go ahead, baby, scream to God, he can hear you. I can feel your heart beating fast, cause it's time to die. Getting high, watch the time fly. And all my motherfuckers staring at the